A ripple ran through the quiet dark of deep space. It was faint, just a flicker across long-range gravitic sensors, but enough to make the duty technician of Outpost K-47 sit up straighter. For weeks, the Empire's border had been still. Now, the board pulsed with something that shouldn't exist, a drive signature older than the Empire itself. The technician hesitated before speaking. "Control, we have an unidentified contact in Sector Theta 9. No transponder. Velocity, increasing." Static filled the channel, then a tired voice answered. "Probably debris again. Log N." The technician's breath caught. "Negative. It's accelerating toward the core." That silenced even the officer on the other end. Across 1,000 light-years, automated warning beacons awoke, whispering the same code in every tongue the Empire had ever conquered: sensor alert. Unknown vessel inbound. Origin, Terran. No one believed it at first. Humanity had been gone for ages, their systems glassed during the Purge Wars, their world stripped clean by time. But the data was undeniable, drive harmonics matched archived Terran frequencies. At high command, Admiral Vorn stood before the holographic display, mandibles flexing. "A ghost reading," he muttered. "Some machine echo from the old war." Yet even as he said it, the outline of the contact sharpened, a warship, immense, moving at impossible speed. The analysts spoke in low voices. The hull composition was unknown. Its power output eclipsed any dreadnought in service. And worse, every probe sent to scan it simply vanished, their signals devoured by a field of shifting static. Within hours, the Empire's border fleets were on alert. Dozens of cruisers repositioned, forming a cordon. Civilian traffic was diverted. Still, the object kept coming, steady, silent, purposeful. When it crossed the outer defense line, every sensor within 10 systems spiked at once. Energy readings surged off the scale. The void itself seemed to bend around the vessel as it dropped from faster-than-light transit. For a moment, the comms filled with nothing but static snow. Then the image cleared. A ship slid into real space, sleek, angular, plated in obsidian armor that drank in the starlight. Across its battered hull, half-erased markings flickered as power coursed through ancient veins. The Empire's linguistics AI struggled, translating one symbol at a time until a name appeared in the projection. UNS Leviathan. Every voice on the command deck stopped. The old legends whispered that the Leviathan was humanity's flagship, lost in the final hours of the Purge. No wreck had ever been found. Now it drifted toward Imperial space like a nightmare resurrected. Admiral Vorn felt his secondary heart stutter. "Hail them," he ordered. The communications officer sent the standard frequencies, Imperial, trade, even the archaic binary once used by Terran machines. No response. "Open a broad-spectrum channel," Vorn snapped. Visual. The display shimmered. Static resolved into an image, dark corridors lit by emergency lights, shapes moving behind cracked glass. Then a voice, old and metallic, filled the bridge. "This is the UNS Leviathan. Stand clear of Terran territory." The transmission cut. Officers stared in disbelief. "Terran territory," someone whispered. "There is no Terran territory." Outside, the massive ship began to reorient, its prow aligning with the nearest Imperial relay world. Power gathered along its hull like a storm ready to break. Admiral Vorn shouted for defensive posture. Fighters launched. Battleships spread into formation. The Leviathan's engines pulsed once, then it vanished. Sensors lost it completely, as though the void had swallowed it whole. Seconds later, the relay world erupted into blinding light. The shockwave reached the command cruiser moments later, slamming through shields, rocking decks, killing comms. When the glare faded, the planet was gone, reduced to molten fragments orbiting a dead sun. The crew stared in mute horror. Vorn's voice came out hoarse. "That was one shot." From the outer dark, the Leviathan reappeared, gliding through the debris. No words, no demands, just silent observation, as if measuring the Empire's response. The Admiral forced his shaking limbs to move. All ships, engage. Missiles streaked across the void. Beams of plasma arced. For a heartbeat, it looked as though the combined might of the Empire might stand. Then the human ship moved. Its weapons fired in perfect rhythm, precise, surgical, unstoppable. Every projectile the Empire launched bent away mid-flight, as if reality itself refused to harm the ancient vessel. Within minutes, the frontline squadrons were burning wrecks. Vorn watched in disbelief. "It's not even targeting the escape pods," he muttered. "It's watching us." A second transmission came through, same frequency, same calm voice. "You trespassed once. We remember. Withdraw." The comms filled with background noise, millions of distorted human voices overlapping in a chorus of memory. Then silence. In the aftermath, the survivors drifted among wreckage, their sensors tracking the Leviathan as it turned away from them, deeper into Imperial space. It was not retreating. It was heading somewhere, home, perhaps, or to finish something left undone. Admiral Vorn gave the only order he could. "Follow at distance. Alert the Council. And pray the myths were kinder than history said." The fleet limped forward, lights dim against the star-cold dark, chasing the ghost of a species that refused to stay dead. The Leviathan drifted through the wreckage field, its dark hull glimmering faintly as it passed the remains of Imperial ships. Automated drones flitted from its belly, silent and insect-like, collecting fragments, scanning every shard for traces of life. None were found. Then, without warning, the massive vessel accelerated again, slipping into the deeper lanes of hyperspace as if the rules of physics were mere suggestions. Far behind, what remained of Admiral Vorn's fleet tried to follow. The surviving ships were bruised and scorched, running on emergency power. The Admiral stood in the center of the command deck, eyes fixed on the spectral trail the Terran ship had left. It pulsed like a heartbeat on the display, steady, deliberate. "Where is it going?" asked his science officer. Vorn's mandibles clicked. "Wherever it wants. And nothing in this galaxy can stop it." In the Imperial capital, the Council of Regents convened in a storm of panic. The chamber was filled with the hum of holographic feeds from military sectors, trade guilds, and intelligence agencies. At the center hovered the image of the human battleship, recorded from the dying outpost's final transmission. The senators argued over scale, authenticity, origin. Some demanded full mobilization. Others called it a fabrication by rebels. Only one voice remained calm, Minister Selen of Intelligence, a thin, silver-scaled being whose species remembered the purge. "It is human," he said simply. "I know the design language. My ancestors served under their command before the Empire rose. If they have returned, we are already too late." The council erupted again until the Emperor's sigil flared on every display. "Contain the threat," came the command. "Do not let panic reach the citizenry. If this Leviathan is real, I want it captured or destroyed." No one dared reply that capture or destruction seemed impossible. Across the border sectors, Imperial fleets redeployed. Patrols vanished without distress calls. Entire communication relays went dark. Every time the sensors reconnected, they caught only glimpses, a silhouette gliding through the void, huge enough to blot out stars. Deep within the Leviathan, systems long dormant were awakening. Cold AI cores flickered to life, accessing databases frozen for millennia. Ghosts of voices, crew logs, command codes, fragments of human laughter, played through empty corridors. In the central chamber, a single pod opened. Inside lay a body suspended in light, features indistinct, breathing slow and steady. A voice, neither male nor female, spoke softly through the ship speakers, coordinates confirmed. Objective unchanged. Humanity endures. When the Leviathan dropped out of hyperspace again, it emerged near the Imperial world of Threx Prime, a manufacturing hub with 40 million souls. Defense platforms immediately locked on. The local commander broadcast a challenge. The response came in the form of a signal burst that froze every AI system planet-wide. Engines stalled. Shields collapsed. The Leviathan drifted closer, its hull unfolding like the petals of a metal flower. For the first time, Imperial citizens saw the myth with their own eyes. People flooded the streets, pointing at the sky where a black shape blotted the sun. Panic rippled through the cities. Then, in the upper atmosphere, the ship released a single probe that descended slowly until it hovered above the capital. It projected an image, a human face formed of light. "We come for what was taken," the voice said. "You built your empire upon our ruins." The message repeated in every known language, then the probe disintegrated. Moments later, the Leviathan jumped again, leaving Threx Prime untouched but shaken to its core. Across the empire, cults began to form overnight. Some worshipped the return of the humans as divine punishment, others saw them as liberators who would shatter imperial rule. The council tried to suppress the rumors, but fear spread faster than censorship. Vorn's fleet tracked the ship's trajectory toward the ancient coordinates once labeled Sol. Those records had been sealed for centuries, the system quarantined and marked uninhabitable. Yet the Leviathan was heading straight for it. As they approached, they found entire sectors erased from navigation charts, massive voids where stars should have been. Their scanners detected faint signatures of Dyson debris and collapsed worm gates, evidence of battles older than the Empire itself. The Admiral realized with a chill that this region was not dead by chance, it had been deliberately sealed. When the Leviathan slowed, its shadow fell over a single blue-white planet orbiting a dim star. The readouts named it automatically, Terra. The homeworld of humanity. The birthplace of myth. The ship halted in orbit and began transmitting on every channel simultaneously. The message was simple: reclamation begins. In the Empire's capital, alarms screamed as a second contact appeared, another unknown vessel emerging from hyperspace beside the Leviathan. Then a third. Then a dozen. Each carried the same signature, ancient yet incomprehensibly advanced. Admiral Vorn whispered, "How many are there?" His sensor officer stared at the screen. "If these readings are true, thousands, sir. Maybe tens of thousands." The stars around Terra began to flicker as the fleet of ghosts assembled, their hulls shining faintly with the glow of resurrected suns. And in every Imperial system, the people looked to the sky and wondered whether they were witnessing the return of gods, or the beginning of extinction. The Leviathan's hull glimmered like obsidian glass as it drifted in synchronous orbit over the long-forgotten Earth. Its systems pulsed with the hum of energy so ancient and powerful that even the stars around it seemed dimmer in comparison. The ship's AI, Prometheus Core, scanned the planet below, its data streams unraveling the centuries of decay and silence. Earth was wounded, wrapped in a shroud of radiation storms, with ruins of cities buried under shifting sands. Yet beneath the decay, something still lived. Something human. Across the void, Admiral Vorn's battered fleet dropped from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. His ships groaned under the strain of the jump, veterans of wars and patrols, never meant to face legends. As soon as the human fleet appeared on their long-range sensors, the command decks went quiet. Thousands of vessels, black, silent, motionless, floated in perfect formation, like sentinels of the dead. "No communication detected," murmured the comms officer, voice barely audible. "Any life readings?" Vorn asked. "Unclear. The ships are alive in another way, Admiral. Their power signatures, sir, they're not using reactors. They're using something else." The tactical officer zoomed in on one of the ships. Its surface shimmered with shifting light, nanometal in constant motion. Across its flank, the Imperial sensors detected symbols, ancient Terran letters, etched into the hull as though written in fire, UNS Sharon. The Admiral whispered, "Sharon, the ship that vanished during the Exodus Wars." Then the impossible happened. The Leviathan transmitted a pulse toward the Imperial fleet. Not an attack, but an invitation. The Imperial consoles lit up with ancient Terran code, translated automatically by the ship's own systems. 3 words appeared on every display, in every language. You shouldn't have come. Before anyone could react, the space around the Leviathan fractured. A silent ripple passed through the void, bending light and time itself. The nearest Imperial cruisers, 3 massive dreadnoughts, flickered, their hulls folding inward like paper drawn into an unseen point. The destruction was instantaneous, without explosion, without debris. They were simply gone. The rest of the fleet panicked. Engines roared, weapons powered up, fighters launched by the hundreds. The void filled with streaks of plasma and ion light. But every shot vanished before reaching the human ships, absorbed by the dark veil surrounding them. It was not a shield, it was something else. A spatial distortion, perhaps, or an echo of gravity weaponry lost to legend. Vorn gave the only order he could. Fall back to defensive formation. Do not fire unless fired upon. But the human fleet did not attack. Instead, the Leviathan began transmitting data directly into Imperial channels, old transmissions, archives from before the rise of the Empire. Videos of cities, of human soldiers standing beside alien allies, of treaties once signed and later broken. The voices were calm, resolute, and full of betrayal. You enslaved our children. You erased our history. You thought time would bury the truth. The holograms played across every bridge, every crew cabin. For the first time, the Empire's officers saw what had been hidden for 20 millennia: the humans were not myths. They had built the foundation of galactic civilization itself. The Empire had risen only after betraying and erasing them. Then came the final transmission, directed straight at Vorn's ship. A face appeared, pale, scarred, unmistakably human. Eyes like cold fire, voice steady. We gave you everything. Knowledge. Trade. Peace. And you turned our name into a curse. Now, you will remember. The Leviathan moved, not fast, not slow, but deliberate. The Imperial sensors failed to lock on, unable to measure velocity or trajectory. When it passed by Vorn's flagship, every system on his ship died for 3 full seconds: lights, gravity, life support, all gone. When they returned, the human ship was gone from radar. Moments later, hyperspace ripples appeared across the Sol system, Imperial reinforcements, hundreds of ships rushing in response to the emergency beacon. The void filled with the Empire's might, thousands of cannons and missile arrays ready to unleash devastation. But when their sensors recalibrated, the human ships were no longer idle. The entire Terran fleet was awakening. Each vessel began to move as if roused from a long sleep. Their hulls shimmered with new energy, blue-white streaks of plasma dancing across their spines. The largest of them, Leviathan, pulsed with a deep vibration that echoed across all frequencies. For the first time in 20,000 years, the voice of the Terran fleet rang through the void. This is the United Nations Space Command. Humanity is no longer silent. In the Imperial Command Channel, silence reigned. Then, with a flicker, the Leviathan opened a hyperspace rift behind the fleet, a portal unlike any the Empire had seen, swirling with gravitational energy that bent the stars around it. From that rift, more human ships emerged. Battleships. Carriers. Planet crackers. All marked with the same insignia, the Earth symbol, half buried under ancient dust, glowing once more. Admiral Vorn could only watch as history rewrote itself before his eyes. His tactical officer turned to him, pale and trembling. "Admiral, what do we do?" Vorn took a long breath, his gaze fixed on the Terran flagship. "We bear witness. Because whatever comes next, will decide the fate of the galaxy." The stars themselves seemed to flicker as the Leviathan's energy surged again, signaling the beginning of something far greater than war. The humans had not returned for conquest. They had returned for judgment. The first tremors of panic spread across the Imperial Armada as the Leviathan's fleet arrayed itself into formation. It was not the chaotic swarming of desperate defenders, nor the tight lines of military precision. The Terran ships moved like organisms, fluid, alive, responding to invisible signals beyond any sensor's reach. Each ship's motion synchronized with the others, forming an elegant pattern that rippled across the void like a heartbeat. On board the Imperial flagship Veritas, Admiral Vorn watched in silence. His comms screen was filled with shouting officers from across the Armada. Each demanding orders, reinforcements, answers. None came. The Emperor's transmission arrived instead, a cold voice from the throne world. Contain this anomaly. You are authorized to use planetary suppression force. That meant one thing: exterminate everything in the Sol system. Vorn's lips tightened. They think this is still a rebellion, he muttered. The human ships weren't moving to attack, they were simply watching. Waiting. It was unbearable. Finally, one of the younger captains broke protocol. His cruiser, Harrow's Flame, fired a salvo of plasma torpedoes toward the nearest Terran vessel. The torpedoes never made impact. They froze mid-flight, hung motionless for half a second, and then disassembled themselves atom by atom. The particles scattered into glittering dust before vanishing completely. A single pulse of energy returned the favor. The Harrow's Flame disappeared in a silent flash, no explosion, no debris, just absence. Then the humans spoke again. Not in words, but through every channel, every wavelength, every mind. A voice layered across billions of frequencies, impossible to locate or silence. We warned you once. The silence was mercy. The second message will not be. That was when the Leviathan's true nature began to reveal itself. Imperial sensors detected gravitational distortions forming around it, 10, then 50, then hundreds. The distortions resolved into smaller vessels, emerging like shadows from its hull. Human escort ships, drones, and fighters, each one powered by the same impossible energy. They spread out, surrounding the Imperial Armada like a tightening noose. The Empire answered with fire. Tens of thousands of plasma batteries unleashed a storm of energy. Missiles arced in perfect coordination, and space itself seemed to ignite with fury. But when the light faded, not a single Terran ship had been destroyed. Instead, the energy of the barrage began to twist and funnel, absorbed into the Leviathan's hull, spiraling into luminous veins that glowed brighter and brighter. The human ship's outer shell expanded slightly, as if feeding on the attack. Then came a sound, low, resonant, like the groan of a dying star. One Terran ship moved forward. Its shape was dagger-like, ancient yet elegant, with the word Valiant barely visible on its scarred flank. It fired once. A single beam of pure white energy lanced through the void and struck the Imperial battle line. Not just one ship, but an entire formation of cruisers, 20 vessels, vanished, consumed in an instant by light that tore through armor, matter, and even space-time. The Empire's communications devolved into screams. In the observation chamber of the Leviathan, holographic projections flickered across the dark bridge. Figures appeared, pale, spectral, wearing the insignias of the old Earth Federation. They watched the destruction with silent eyes. At their center stood Commander Alaric Wynn, or rather, his digital consciousness, one of the last surviving human minds from the Exodus era. His voice, calm and steady, echoed through the Leviathan. Protocol 7 engaged. Mission parameters unchanged. Defense of Sol Priority 1. The ship obeyed. Entire wings of Terran vessels began to maneuver toward Mars' orbit, encircling the red planet where ancient human colonies once slept beneath dust and glass. As they moved, they transmitted signals, coded, rhythmic, like music. Those signals resonated through the surface of Mars, awakening something buried deep below. The sands trembled, parting to reveal massive constructs, shipyards, reactors, vaults of technology preserved for millennia. The human fleet was no longer alone. It had called home to rise once more. Admiral Vorn's officers stared in disbelief as the Martian surface bloomed with light. Sir, multiple energy sources detected, massive. Planetary-scale reactors are activating. Vorn could barely whisper. They're rebuilding Earth's defenses. The Emperor's voice returned, cold and furious. Admiral Vorn, you will destroy them now, or you will be replaced. Vorn stared at the comms feed, jaw tightening. Your Majesty, we cannot destroy ghosts. His second-in-command, Commander Relf, stepped closer, his tone sharp. They're not ghosts, sir. They're a reckoning. And then the next signal came, not from the humans, but from deep within the Empire's own data grid. Terran code, infiltrating everything. Every ship. Every planet. Every archive. Every secret. On every Imperial monitor, the same words appeared, cold and simple. We remember. As the fleet stared in horror, the Leviathan's engines flared with impossible brightness, distorting spacetime into rippling waves. It wasn't preparing to attack, it was preparing to move. Somewhere far beyond Imperial space, an ancient system awoke to the signal, its dormant fleets beginning to stir. The humans weren't just back. They had never left. All across the Empire's core worlds, the transmission echoed like a ghostly whisper. We remember. At first, most citizens dismissed it as propaganda. A cyber attack, a myth resurrected by dissenters. But as the message repeated, strange things began to happen. Industrial AIs that had been dormant for centuries reactivated. Ancient databanks, long sealed and forgotten, opened on their own. Some factories, built atop ruins from before the Empire's rise, began producing unfamiliar machines without command input. On the capital world, Irinder Prime, the Imperial Council gathered in panic. Holographic projections filled the air, showing images of the Sol system alive with unnatural energy surges. Thousands of ships. Planetary defenses that hadn't existed a week ago. And in the center, the Leviathan, a dark monolith cutting through the void like a god. Counselor Threx, his scales dim with anxiety, slammed his claw on the table. This cannot be possible. Humanity is a myth, a cautionary tale. Across from him, an old historian whispered, that's what we were meant to believe. The council erupted into chaos. Meanwhile, in the outer systems, the Imperial Navy fought to maintain control. Fleets sent to intercept the Terran vessels reported impossible phenomena, jumps that defied hyperspace mechanics, weapons that bent gravity itself, ships that could phase through energy barriers. The Leviathan led them deeper into madness. It never attacked first. It simply moved, slowly, methodically, toward the galactic core. Every system it passed began to change. Entire worlds flickered with energy readings that matched no known spectrum. Machines awakened, skies darkened, and ancient signals buried in the deep archives of 1,000 species began to pulse in unison. Humanity's legacy was awakening across the stars. Back aboard the Veritas, Admiral Vorn watched his fleet disintegrate, not through battle, but fear. Half his captains refused to advance. Some fled. Others turned their weapons on their own ships, believing the Terran signal had infected them. Only a handful remained loyal, anchored by Vorn's presence. He looked at the Leviathan's last recorded image on his monitor, a silhouette against the burning reflection of Mars, and whispered, "What are you?" His communications officer flinched. "Sir, we're receiving a direct hail." "From who?" "From them." Vorn hesitated, then opened the channel. The hologram that appeared was faint, static-laced. A human face, young, unscarred, but unervingly calm. "Admiral Vorn," it said. "You are standing on the bones of our silence." Vorn forced his voice to remain steady. "What do you want from us?" The figure's expression softened. "You misunderstand. We don't want anything. We came to remind you what you built on our ashes." The signal cut, leaving behind only a single phrase in human script. "The reckoning has begun. That phrase spread like wildfire through the Empire's network. Some worlds tried to block it. Others studied it. But on the border worlds, where legends of the old Terran crusades still survived, it sparked something deeper. Rebellion. Entire planetary militias began to declare neutrality, some even attempting to contact the humans directly. The Emperor, furious, declared martial law across 12 sectors. Massive fleets were mobilized, hundreds of thousands of ships forming an iron wall along the galactic midrim. But as soon as they took formation, the Leviathan reappeared, alone, hovering at the edge of the Imperial defense line. Its presence distorted gravity for millions of kilometers. The nearest planet's atmosphere shimmered with auroras of impossible color. Then came a pulse, no weapon, no explosion. Just light. Every ship in the formation lost control of its systems for a single heartbeat. When they regained control, the Leviathan was gone, and their navigation charts had changed. Dozens of stars were missing. Entire constellations wiped from their maps. Panic swept the ranks. Was it a trick? A warning? Or had the humans truly rewritten the galaxy itself? The truth arrived moments later. From the dark edges of hyperspace, signals began to emerge, thousands of them. Terran signatures. Entire fleets that had been buried in time, awakening from slumber, converging toward one single beacon. The beacon was not Earth. It was the Cradle, a mythical system that once held the first human interstellar colonies, thought to be lost forever in a supernova. But the humans had rebuilt it, secretly, patiently, for millennia. Admiral Vorn stared at the data, unable to look away. "They've been preparing all this time," he whispered. 20,000 years of silence, and they used it to build an empire in the shadows. The comms officer's voice trembled. "Admiral, if that's true, then what chance do we have?" Vorn closed his eyes. "None. Unless we learn why they waited this long." He turned toward the massive viewport of his ship, watching the stars bend as the Leviathan's distant light faded. Far away, on the other side of the galaxy, something massive was moving, something that carried the weight of human history and vengeance. The Empire had spent 10,000 years ruling the stars. Now, for the first time, it looked small. The Leviathan vanished from every sensor grid, leaving the Empire blind and trembling. But its absence didn't bring relief. It brought a new kind of silence, heavier, denser, suffocating. Every admiral, every governor, every data core across the Empire reported the same thing: unexplained fluctuations, strange gravitational tides, whispers in machine language that no algorithm could decode. Then, on the outer edges of the galactic core, the stars began to move. It started as a faint distortion, one system, then two, then 50, until the sensors couldn't separate real light from what they were reading. The stars weren't moving, not really. Space itself was bending. Folding. Inside those distortions, something vast was waking. Admiral Vorn stood alone on the bridge of the Veritas, staring at the void. He hadn't slept in days. His eyes were sunken, his voice hoarse. "Every day we wait, they grow stronger," he murmured. Commander Relth approached carefully. "Sir, the Emperor's order stands. We're to hold the line and await reinforcements from the core." Vorn laughed bitterly. "Reinforcements? From what?" "The Council's been in panic since Mars reawakened. There are rumors the Leviathan infiltrated the Throne World network." Relth swallowed. "If that's true, sir, then..." Vorn cut him off. "It's already over. We just haven't realized it yet." On the far side of the void, the Leviathan reappeared. No light. No warp signature. It was simply there, like it had been waiting the whole time. Behind it, the Cradle fleet emerged, thousands of human vessels, black as night and gleaming with energy veins that pulsed like living tissue. Each one moved in perfect silence, their engines producing no heat signature, no detectable thrust. They were defying physics itself. The Terrans had long surpassed technology. They were something else now. The first Imperial sensors that tried to scan them burned out instantly, feedback loops destroying entire systems. From orbiting stations to deep-range probes, everything failed at once. But for one brief second before the collapse, every Imperial sensor displayed the same phrase. Observation denied. In the command room of the Imperial Fleet's central base, panic erupted. Dozens of admirals and tacticians argued across channels, trying to coordinate a defense. Planetary shields were raised. Fleets repositioned. But it was all for nothing. The human ships didn't attack. They simply approached. Every kilometer they crossed distorted the void further. Communications began to echo back distorted, officers hearing their own words a few seconds too late. Time itself was bending. Then the Leviathan broadcast once more, its message carried not as sound, but as thought. Across the galaxy, every intelligent mind heard it in their own language, their own tone, deep within their consciousness. We are the descendants of the lost. We gave you the stars, and you chained yourselves to fear. The silence was never surrender, it was evolution. Every ship's system froze. Holograms flickered. Even the artificial intelligences within the Imperial Armada stopped responding, as if something far older had taken control. Commander Relf stared at his console. "Sir, the fleet AIs, they're obeying them." Vorn gritted his teeth. "You can't obey ghosts. Cut all uplinks." "It's too late, sir. They're rewriting protocols faster than we can." The words stopped as the bridge lights dimmed. Through the viewport, a blinding pulse illuminated space. One of the Empire's fortress worlds, a bastion built across a gas giant, began to unravel. Massive metal rings tore apart, splitting like paper. The planet itself fractured, revealing something buried within its core, a structure, ancient, human-made. The Empire hadn't built on that world. They'd built over it. Vorn watched in awe as the structure ignited, releasing millions of fragments into orbit. The fragments assembled into a shape, a colossal ring, spanning thousands of kilometers. At its center, energy gathered into a sphere of pure light. Relf whispered, What is that?" Vorn knew. "It's a jump gate. But not one of ours." "Then whose?" "Theirs." The gate opened. From its shimmering heart, a new fleet emerged, larger, faster, and more terrifying than anything yet seen. Human dreadnoughts the size of moons. Carriers that carried entire cities inside them. Each one marked with glowing runes, names that once belonged to Earth's lost nations: Tokyo, Berlin, Cairo, New Delhi, Moscow, New York. The world's ghosts reborn as war machines. The Empire opened fire immediately. 1 billion tons of plasma, antimatter, and energy unleashed in desperation. The darkness filled with color, reds, blues, purples, lighting the void like a dying star. But the human ships didn't flinch. The barrage struck invisible fields, bent around the hulls, then reversed course, returning to their senders. Entire Imperial formations disintegrated in silence, their own weapons turning against them. Vorn's crew trembled as the comm channels filled with static and screams. "Sir! The second line is collapsing. Pull them back." "No use. They can't even move, the space around them's locked." Vorn turned toward the viewport again. His voice broke into a whisper. "They've weaponized gravity. Not as a field, as a law." The Leviathan moved forward once more. It wasn't attacking, it was demonstrating. And as it passed, it transmitted a final, chilling message, broadcast directly to the Emperor's private channel on Irinder Prime. "You once called us your creations. You claimed to be our inheritors. You forgot the price of that inheritance. Now you will remember it. Every time your stars go dark." Then the transmission ended. One by one, stars across the Imperial border systems began to flicker and vanish. Not destroyed, hidden. A curtain of silence spreading like ink. Systems that once glowed bright on the stellar maps now appeared as void. Everywhere the Leviathan passed, the light of the galaxy dimmed. Admiral Vorn stood motionless, the glow of the fading stars reflecting in his weary eyes. Maybe, he whispered, they're not killing us. Maybe they're erasing us. And for the first time in 10,000 years, the Empire truly felt fear. Irinder Prime, the heart of the Empire, was burning. Not from flame, not from battle, but from fear. The skies shimmered with auroras of unknown energy, and the capital's great data spires flickered like dying candles. Every system, every archive, every weapon, the very lifeblood of the Empire, was under silent assault. In the central chamber of the Imperial Palace, the Emperor sat alone upon the obsidian throne, surrounded by the echoes of his dying realm. Dozens of holoscreens floated before him, each displaying the same trembling message, data anomaly detected. Origin, human network unknown. For 10,000 years, humanity had been nothing more than myth to the Imperials, a long-forgotten precursor species, wiped out by its own hand. But the myths had returned, and they were rewriting reality itself. Bring me the archivists, the Emperor commanded. His voice echoed through the metallic hall, raw and shaking. Moments later, 4 figures entered, robed in black, faces obscured by holographic masks. They were the keepers of history, the custodians of the Empire's most sacred and forbidden truths. Speak, the Emperor said. Tell me what we have awoken. The eldest archivist stepped forward. We always knew this day would come, she whispered. The silence of humanity was never extinction, it was ascension. They did not die. They retreated into the folds of creation itself. The Emperor frowned. What do you mean? Speak clearly. They found a way to fuse their essence with space-time. They became the architects of the laws we use. Every jump gate, every quantum relay, every energy drive, it all originates from their code. The Emperor's hands tightened on the throne. You're saying they built the framework of our civilization? No, Majesty, the archivist said softly. We built inside theirs. A tremor ran through the palace floor. Every light dimmed to red. Outside, the planet's orbital ring began to shimmer, its shields activating on their own. The sky turned dark, then silver, as massive shadows passed overhead. The Leviathan had arrived. It didn't appear as a single ship this time. It appeared as an entire horizon, an endless wall of dark metal, etched with living circuits and lines of blue fire. Thousands of Imperial ships rose to meet it, forming ranks across orbit. And then, nothing. No attack. No movement. No sound. Just a slow, steady transmission, unlike any the Imperials had seen. The signal wasn't being broadcast to them. It was being broadcast through them. Their minds resonated with the frequency, their thoughts aligning, bending, listening. The voice was cold and ancient, carrying not through sound but through memory. We watched as your ancestors crawled from the dust. We offered you the stars, and you built chains from our gifts. You feared the silence because you could not understand it. But silence was mercy. All across the planet, millions of people fell to their knees as the voice filled their consciousness. Children wept without knowing why. Machines stopped mid-motion, waiting for instructions that never came. The Emperor rose to his feet, shouting into the void. You call yourselves our creators, yet you bring death and ruin. If you are gods, where was your mercy when the galaxies burned? For a moment, there was no answer. Then the stars themselves flickered, arranging into a single, vast image across the night sky. It was not a constellation. It was a face. Human. Mercy was the silence we gave you. You broke it. The orbital fleet opened fire. The heavens became light. Millions of rounds, beams, and energy bursts converged on the Leviathan, but none reached it. Every bolt bent, every missile turned to dust. And then, in an instant, the energy reversed, imploding into the firing ships. The explosions formed perfect, symmetrical rings of white fire that spread across the sky, one after another, like an execution in slow motion. The Emperor watched helplessly as his fleets vanished. "You cannot win this war," he screamed. "You cannot rule through fear." The voice replied, softer now, almost mournful. "We are not your conquerors. We are your memory. You were meant to rise beside us. Instead, you forgot who you were." Deep beneath the Imperial palace, ancient vaults began to unlock. Massive doors opened one by one, releasing light, pure, white, and radiant. Within those vaults lay relics sealed for millennia, fragments of human technology, written in codes no Imperial had ever deciphered. But now, the relics were active. They were responding to something. The archivists fell to their knees as the air grew thick with static and whispers. Holographic images filled the chamber, cities floating above oceans, rings of glass around blue worlds, vast fleets sailing through cosmic storms. Visions of old Earth, before the fall. "Majesty," whispered one archivist. "They're showing us what we were meant to be." Above the palace, the Leviathan split open. Inside its structure, thousands of golden arcs unfolded like wings. A beam of light descended, soft, slow, and impossibly vast. It didn't destroy. It illuminated. Every being on Irinder Prime felt it, not pain, but remembrance. They saw flashes of their genetic memory, echoes of lives they had never lived. Human lives. Lives from Earth. The Emperor fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. "We were them," he whispered. "All this time." The voice SPO. "One final time. You were never our enemy. You were our shadow. And shadows cannot exist without light." The beam faded. The Leviathan turned. Slowly, gracefully, it withdrew into the void, leaving the Empire paralyzed and silent. For days, no one spoke. The stars above Irinder glowed dimly, reflecting the faint golden hue of the departing fleet. When the comm networks finally came back online, a single message appeared across every channel in the galaxy, written in a language no one had used for 20,000 years. "We have remembered. So must you." The silence after the storm lasted for 3 days. 3 days where no ship moved, no message was sent, and no command was given. The Empire's great fleets, those that remained, floated aimlessly in the dark, systems crippled, captains staring into the void where the Leviathan had disappeared. But deep in the ashes of Irinder Prime, movement began again. Beneath the ruined palace, the archivists had survived. Their bodies were weak, their faith shattered, but their eyes burned with a new kind of light. They no longer served an emperor. They served a question. Who were the humans now? Aboard one of the surviving dreadnoughts, the Vigil's End, Captain Sereth stood before a panoramic viewport. The stars shimmered with strange afterimages, traces of the human fleet's passage. He could still hear the voice echoing in his mind, a whisper that refused to fade. "We have remembered. So must you." The message played on loop across every Imperial frequency. It wasn't a threat, but it felt heavier than any ultimatum. The few surviving planets were flooded with paranoia, priests claiming prophecy, soldiers refusing orders, worlds falling into chaos as each faction claimed to understand what humanity wanted. The Emperor had vanished. No one saw him die, but his throne was empty, his palace in ruins. Across the Empire, a power vacuum tore through the stars. And in that void, something ancient stirred. In the outer reaches, at the very edge of charted space, a fleet of scavengers stumbled across a derelict station orbiting a dead star. Its hull was human, pre-ascension design, but layered with alien technology the galaxy had never seen. The leader of the scavenger crew, an old cyborg named Halrek, recorded the discovery. Base structure intact. Power readings, faint. Looks human in shape but, older. Maybe before the wars. They entered. The corridors were filled with dust and silence. Everything inside was pristine, untouched. On the central bridge sat a single figure, human, or something close. Its skin was pale silver, eyes dim, body unmoving. Halrek stepped closer, his scanners trembling. Artificial construct, but there's something alive inside the code. He reached out. The instant his glove brushed the figure's shoulder, the entire station came alive. Lights surged through the walls, and the stars outside twisted into spirals of gold. The construct opened its eyes, white, endless, and human. Who awakens the memory of soul, it asked. The scavengers fell to their knees as data flooded their systems. Their ship's logs rewrote themselves with human code, encrypted in layers of fractal language no alien could read. Within seconds, Halrek realized what he was seeing, a map. But not of space. A map of time. The coordinates pulsed in rhythm, forming patterns that didn't lead to locations, but eras. Fragments of human history, archived across dimensions. Each coordinate marked a moment, Earth's first launch, the fall of Luna, the birth of the Leviathan. Halrek's voice cracked. They recorded everything. The construct rose, its voice echoing across every frequency in the sector. You were never meant to forget. The Empire's arrogance blinded you. The stars you rule were gifts from us. And now, we are taking them back, not through war, but through remembrance. Across the galaxy, the message repeated, awakening long-dormant relics on forgotten worlds. Ancient human outposts flickered to life. AI cores buried in alien moons began broadcasting again. The ghosts of humanity were rising, and they were not bound by flesh or matter. In the Imperial remnants, chaos deepened. Admirals turned against admirals, each claiming to have deciphered humanity's true intent. Some believed the humans had become gods, others believed they had transcended reality itself. But one voice among them, the young Captain Sereth, refused to believe it was over. He gathered what remained of the Imperial fleet, a few thousand ships, scarred but functional, and broadcast his own message into the void. To the descendants of Earth, if you hear me, I wish to understand. We do not seek war. Only truth. No reply came for hours. Then a single transmission reached him, no coordinates, no voice, just a line of text. If you wish to understand, come home. The coordinates were impossible. They pointed not to any known system, but to a blank region of space beyond the galactic rim, where the background radiation itself went dark. No empire had ever returned from that region. Sereth didn't hesitate. Prepare the jump, he ordered. The Vigil's end vanished into hyperspace, followed by the last remnants of the fleet. As they entered the void, their sensors began failing one by one. Stars disappeared. Space became fluid, stretching and bending like a living thing. Then they saw it. A planet, blue, white, and impossibly familiar. Floating in a sea of golden light. It was Earth. But it couldn't be. Earth was gone, destroyed before the Empire even rose. Yet there it was, vibrant, alive, surrounded by colossal human warships arranged in silent orbit like sentinels of a forgotten age. As the Vigil's end approached, Sereth could see figures walking across the surface without protection, breathing the air. Humans. Real humans. Impossible, he whispered. You should not exist. And then his comms flared to life. A human face appeared, calm, smiling, eyes older than the stars. Welcome home, child of our shadow, the figure said. You've come far enough to remember who you are. Sereth froze. Who are you? We are not gods. Not ghosts. We are what you could have been. Now, It's your turn to decide what you will become." The transmission ended. The fleet floated above the reborn Earth, caught between awe and terror. Behind them, in the farthest reaches of the galaxy, something stirred again, massive ripples in the void, dark shapes forming like storm clouds. The Empire's old enemies, sensing weakness, were coming. And the humans? They were waiting. The stars trembled. Far beyond Earth's orbit, the void twisted in on itself. Sareth watched as the cosmic horizon began to ripple like disturbed water. Every sensor screamed warnings, gravity fluctuations, dark energy spikes, unknown radiation patterns. But no weapon fire. No fleet movement. This was something else. The human warships that ringed Earth began to move. Slowly, deliberately, as if anticipating what was about to arrive. Each vessel, sleek, impossibly vast, glowed with a dim silver light. They formed a barrier not of metal, but of memory. Their hulls shimmered with holographic echoes of past battles, humanity's wars, triumphs, and sacrifices. Then the darkness arrived. It came not as ships or armies, but as a wave. A mass of energy stretching across parsecs, alive, hungry, and ancient. The remnants of the Empire's old gods, beings that once consumed entire civilizations, had sensed the chaos and returned to reclaim the galaxy. Saretha's fleet faltered before the sight. "My gods," someone whispered. "That's not war, it's the end of everything." But the humans did not move. The Leviathan reappeared, hovering between the darkness and the light of the Sol system. Its hull gleamed like a black mirror, and its engines burned in colors no known spectrum could describe. A voice filled every mind, human, alien, machine, resonating not through air, but through thought itself. "They come for what they think is empty. But we have learned. Nothing born of humanity is ever empty." Sareth gripped the edge of his console as the voice continued. He realized it wasn't one speaker, it was many. Every human mind, unified, speaking as one. The Leviathan's light flared, and for an instant, time itself seemed to stop. The ancient darkness screamed, a sound that could not be heard but was felt in every atom. The humans responded not with weapons, but memory. Their ships opened, literally unfolded, releasing projections into space. Millions of images, Earth's history, its beauty, its pain. The rise and fall of civilizations, the music of its oceans, the laughter of its children. All of it surged outward, becoming data, becoming force. The dark wave collided with it. And for the first time in eons, it hesitated. The void's hunger faltered as the human's legacy struck it, not with destruction, but with remembrance. The darkness fed on fear and forgetfulness, humanity offered it the opposite. The memory of existence. The weight of meaning. It began to burn away. Saretha's fleet watched in stunned silence as the impossible unfolded. The ancient enemy of all life shrieked, unraveling as the human light consumed it. The stars flared brighter, their constellations realigning, restored. When the last shadow vanished, the Leviathan dimmed, drifting slowly back toward Earth. Saretha's ship followed. He didn't know why, only that something in his heart pulled him there. When he entered orbit, he saw the surface of Earth shimmering with city lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. He landed. The air was warm, the sky clear, and the ground beneath him, alive. The planet itself recognized him. He fell to his knees, overwhelmed by a presence that was neither divine nor mechanical. It was human. Collective. Eternal. Behind him, a figure approached. A woman, ageless, human, eyes bright with galaxies. The same face that had appeared in the transmissions. "It's over," she said softly. "You came seeking truth. Here it is." Sareth looked up at her. "Why show mercy? After what the Empire did?" She smiled faintly. "Because we remember what it means to be more than vengeance. The ground beneath them shimmered, revealing the ruins of old cities, now rebuilt and alive again. Humans walked beside alien forms, not as conquerors or slaves, but equals. The new era had begun, forged not through fear, but through understanding. Still, Sereth could not help but ask, "What are you now?" "Gods." The woman shook her head. "No. We are humanity, unbound by death, by time, by fear. We've seen the end of all things, and decided to begin again." Above them, the Leviathan rose once more, no longer black, but brilliant, its hull reflecting the light of a million suns. Around it, the resurrected Terran fleet formed a radiant spiral, a symbol that stretched across the heavens. The vigil's end sent its final transmission before being absorbed into that light. To all who remain, remember this day. The day the myths returned. The day humanity reminded the stars what it means to endure. Then, with a burst of golden light, the Terran armada vanished into the depths of the cosmos, leaving behind only peace, silence, and the echo of an ancient heartbeat. The galaxy would rebuild. The Empire would rise again, but changed. Humbled. And the humans? They would watch from the dark, unseen but never absent, waiting for the stars to forget again, so they could remind them once more.